I don't need an infertile wife like you. I'll even demand compensation. Even though I had been diligently supporting him while he was struggling with a chronic illness and continuously seeking a donor, Eric suddenly proposed divorce to me. Unable to comprehend the situation, I was brought to a standstill. However, Eric's words made me decide on divorce. Understood. I left with that brief reply and proceeded with the divorce. The next day, while unpacking at my new place, I discovered 27 missed calls from Eric. It was too late by the time he realized the gravity of the situation. I'll show him hell. My name is Jenny Walters. I've been married to Eric for 7 years. Living with him has been tough, and I've faced many difficult days. It all started with the suspicion of infertility since we were unable to conceive a child. Among all the siblings-in-law, we were the only ones without a child. Every time we met, my mother-in-law would rush us about grandchildren. And Eric continued to engage in loveless acts solely for the purpose of conceiving. We were looked upon with pity by the other siblings-in-law and their wives. And each visit to my in-laws wore down my spirit. Hey, I was thinking, maybe it's infertility? 3 years into trying to conceive, Eric finally began to suspect my infertility due to the lack of any signs of pregnancy. I've also been a bit worried and did some research. If we can't conceive a child for 5 years, then it's possible. Seriously? A woman who can't bear children is the worst. It's practically fraud. What? I couldn't believe what Eric had just said. Why is it only my fault? Well, of course. I've never heard of male infertility, and no one around me has it. It's mostly on the woman's side. There's no way I could be that rare case. The cause of infertility isn't solely on women. Men can also be infertile, and at this point, without any tests, I couldn't accept being blamed alone. It's wrong to decide who's at fault without any tests. Besides, it's not about who's good or bad. If infertility is discovered, shouldn't we think about treatment and try to have children? Isn't it important to think about the future? If tests show infertility, then it's over, isn't it? I have a junior who's trying IVF, and he's always complaining about the high costs. I don't want to go that far for a child. And I'll tell my parents you're infertile and to give up on grandchildren. That's the end of it. Is there any need to discuss the future? He was determined to find fault in me. I couldn't comprehend Eric's words. No, so why do I have to be labeled infertile? We won't know until we get tested. I've been saying this over and over. Whether he was listening or not, Eric's indifferent responses only increased my frustration. Until he mentioned it, I too had days when I worried about not being able to conceive. Maybe the cause was me, I had thought. However, each time, my friends and parents encouraged me and suggested talking it out with Eric. With their support, I've been able to come this far with him. But instead of facing the issue, Eric only pushed me away. Moreover, he refused to listen, insisting that I alone was to blame for not conceiving. Angered by his attitude, I raised my voice, and he looked at me with annoyance. There's no way I'm the cause. All my siblings have children. I've heard that genetics play a role in infertility. Indeed, my mother did say she had difficulty conceiving my sister and me. However, it wasn't infertility, but rather a matter of timing. It was just a case of not being able to conceive for a while. Eric knew this story and wanted to use it against me. Your hypothesis is negated by the fact that my sister and I were born. But both you and your sister are childless. While I can have children, not a single person in your family line does. So the cause must be your body. There's not a single reason for me to be blamed. My sister and her husband got married just 6 months ago. It's too soon for the newlyweds to start trying for children. Eric, making such assumptions without understanding even this, infuriated me. So, you insist on blaming me. It's not my fault, it's yours. If you say so, let's get properly tested. You're confident about your seed, aren't you? Then, let's go for a test together and clarify things once and for all. Regardless, I wanted to know whether I am infertile. Even if something happens between us and we get divorced. When I marry someone new and we try to have children, I want to know if it's a possibility. I wanted to be aware of that. This discussion made me consider divorcing Eric. Unaware of my thoughts, Eric easily took the bait. Fine. Since it's your fault anyway, I have no problem getting tested. Thus, we decided to undergo infertility testing together. However, right after this incident, Eric's chronic illness was discovered. The diagnosis was stage 5 chronic kidney failure, a level requiring dialysis treatment. Your husband's kidney failure is at stage 5. It's terminal, but it doesn't mean his life is in immediate danger. Dialysis treatment can maintain his current condition. I doubted what the doctor told us. Terminal chronic kidney failure? Stage 5? Repeating the words in my head left me blank. I couldn't grasp the doctor's explanation. Mr. Walters will need to visit us for treatment. He will come 4 times a week for blood dialysis, each session lasting 4 hours. If there's no improvement, we'll proceed with peritoneal dialysis, requiring hospitalization. In that case, treatment will involve APD, performed at night using a machine. Or CAPD, done 4 to 6 times during the day. Doctor, will Eric's condition improve with this? The explanation didn't sound like it meant complete recovery, more like symptomatic treatment. When I asked for clarification, the doctor's expression darkened. Honestly, think of it as a lifelong condition rather than something that can be cured. A donor transplant would be ideal for a return to a normal life, but donors are not easy to find. What we can do as doctors is prevent his condition from worsening and ensure he can spend his daily life with his family. That's. Hearing it made it hard to accept, even though I had been contemplating it. Eric, listening next to me, seemed even more shocked, his head bowed in silence. That day, I took a silent Eric back home. Dialysis treatment was to start the next day. Eric, are you okay? Back home, Eric remained silent. When I approached him sitting on the living room sofa, he started laughing hysterically as if he had lost his mind. I have terminal kidney failure. It's laughable. Why do I have to suffer like this? One moment he was laughing, and the next, he threw the TV remote at me from the table. Startled, I screamed softly and instinctively covered my face with my hands to dodge the attack. It's all because I married someone like you. How could you say something like that? Eric, no doubt, was the most disturbed by the diagnosis. Yet, that didn't mean his words didn't hurt me. I'm human too. Even though I was considering divorce, I never wished him to disappear. But Eric's casual cruelty was unforgivable. I was deeply hurt. You've ruined my life. Not only can you not bear children, but you also fail to serve any purpose as a woman. On top of that, you bring this incomprehensible disease like some curse. My life has been ruined because I married you. Disease not only eats away at the body but also the heart. I deeply felt this through Eric's words. There had always been signs of his verbal abuse. But he had never gone this far before. If only you weren't here. If only I hadn't married you. Despite saying such things, Eric inexplicably held me tight. Initially, I was confused and couldn't understand why. But he must be suffering too. His arms were trembling as he hugged me. Probably, being someone who presents well publicly, I was the only one he could lash out at. At that moment, I thought I was the only one who could bear his hardship. So I decided to endure whatever was said to me. It could wait until his illness settled down. Divorce could happen anytime. For now, I would support him to my utmost limit. With that resolution, a strenuous battle with his illness began. However, I realized that this was a mistake a month later. Jenny, let's get a divorce. While we were having dinner, Eric suddenly proposed divorce. I was so confused that my hand holding the fork stopped midair. Without looking at me, he continued to eat his meal calmly. What? What are you saying all of a sudden? What did you just say? Didn't you hear? Then, I'll say it again. Divorce me. We can't go on as husband and wife. It wasn't my imagination. Eric was indeed proposing divorce. But why all of a sudden? I had no memory of doing anything to warrant a divorce. As I sat there dumbfounded, Eric sighed as if he was fed up. I'm sick of being with you. Just seeing your face stresses me out, and it feels like my illness is getting worse. How can you say that? Why divorce? Haven't I supported you all this time? Supported me? Hearing my words, Eric scoffed and said something unbelievable. It's because of you that I got sick, and we can't have children. You've brought me to the depths of misfortune, and you talk about support? Don't make me laugh. Eric angrily put down his chopsticks and spoke irritably. I had reached my limit with his attitude and the way he spoke. Why do you blame everything on me? It's not like I caused you to fall ill. And as for not being able to have children, so, you're saying it's my fault. Eric was probably overwhelmed by his illness. He might not even remember going for the tests together. He cut me off, not giving me a chance to argue back. If we had a child, I would have had hope to live. But there's no such motivating presence. Being with you, my life is doomed. That's why, let's get a divorce. I can't stand being with you. I understand. After being told so much, I couldn't feel a single bit of desire to support him. I had thought to wait until his illness improved a bit. But that time was wasted. To him, I was nothing more than a curse. Feeling this painfully, I accepted his proposition. Thus, our divorce was decided. I would leave the house within the week. While Eric was at the hospital, I started preparing hastily, including picking up the divorce papers from the city hall. Then, by chance, I ran into Mandy Collins, a mutual friend of ours, at the city hall counter. She was the one assisting me. Jenny? What happened? Is something wrong? Mandy, who had attended our wedding, was quite shocked to see me coming to pick up a divorce form. The moment Mandy kindly spoke to me, everything I had been holding back suddenly burst out, and I cried uncontrollably inside the city hall. Noticing my distress, the city hall staff kindly directed Mandy to take care of me and led me to a reception room. I'm sorry, Mandy. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Don't worry about it. What happened? If you're okay with it, can you tell me? Honestly, I wasn't that acquainted with her. I met her through Eric and had seen her only a few times. But every time we met, she treated me kindly, like a caring older sister. She was a warm-hearted person. Actually, I seriously wondered whether to tell her everything. After all, she was Eric's friend. If I spoke carelessly, she might tell him. But I felt genuine concern and kindness in her eyes. Overwhelmed by her gaze, I ended up sharing everything with her. Mandy then clenched my hand gently, shaking with anger. You've endured a lot, Jenny. Huh? Upon hearing about the divorce process, Mandy seemed to make a decision, looked at me with determination, and shared a shocking truth. The revelation made me regret my devoted actions up to that point. Jenny, I'll help you, so let's give him a taste of his own medicine. Are you sure? You're also Eric's friend. Someone like him isn't a friend. Disregarding a wife who supports him this much and acting unforgivably. There's no way I'd support him. Hearing Mandy's encouraging words filled me with joy. I'll support you fully. So, Jenny, let's corner him. Yes. Thus, I decided to take revenge on Eric with Mandy. That night, after Eric returned from the hospital, we filled out the divorce form. Finally, my belongings were packed, and I was ready to leave the next day. Finally saying, goodbye. Huh? It's refreshing. I won't have to see your trash face anymore. That's great. I hope this makes you happy. Facing Eric's taunting words, I smiled gently and responded in a calm tone. He might have felt odd about my response, but he was too preoccupied to question it. More importantly, he had bigger news, smiling meaningfully at me. Man, ever since deciding to divorce you, it's like my luck has turned around. I found a donor. The doctor told me today at the hospital. Understanding the reason behind his meaningful smile, I feigned happiness and congratulated him on finding a donor. That's great. Good for you, finding a donor. Now, my life is going to be rosy. Oh, right. There's something else important I needed to say. Oh? What's that? Eric, with a scheming smile as if getting to the main point. Didn't realize I was pretending not to notice. I responded with a puzzled look, and he laughingly delivered a shocking statement. Now that we're getting divorced, I have no use for you. So, disappear, you infertile garbage. I'll also claim compensation. It's all your fault that my life has been this miserable. It's only what you deserve, right? Astonished by Eric's words, I inwardly scoffed. He must truly believe I'm unaware of anything. The one oblivious here is Eric. While internally mocking his foolishness, I agreed to his words. Understood. With that short reply, the next morning, after submitting the divorce form at the city hall, I left the house. That evening, after work, I met up with Mandy and we headed to my new place. Is that all for the unpacking?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I never expected you'd come to help, too. What are you talking about? This is no big deal at all. Despite being tired from work, Mandy, along with her friends, came over to help me move. Mandy, well liked by everyone, managed to gather a bunch of people to help me, a stranger to them, with my move. Hasn't someone's phone been ringing nonstop? I think it's Jenny's. I heard a vibration sound coming from her bag. Rushing to check my phone, I saw 27 missed calls. All from Eric. Finally noticed, it's pointless for him to call now. As Mandy and I shared a laugh over the expected turn of events, Eric made another call, adding pressure. Answer it. I'm curious about how he's reacting, put it on speaker. Mandy was clearly enjoying the situation. Following her suggestion, I answered the call on speaker, and Eric's agitated voice came through. Jenny, what the hell did you do? This isn't over by a long shot. Eric started off with aggressive language. His tone made the men around us pause their work to listen in. What are you talking about? You need to explain what you mean. Don't play dumb. You refused my donor offer, didn't you? As expected, the conversation turned to the topic of the donor. I almost burst into laughter. The donor Eric mentioned was me, and earlier that morning, I had explained everything to the doctor at the hospital. Having divorced, I refused to be his donor any longer. I'm not your spouse or anything, so of course. Don't mess with me. You accepted the donation once. Just give me your kidney. Oh, how barbaric. I don't have any organs to donate to such a rude person. Continue your treatment until a new donor shows up. Eric, revealing his true nature, yelled and raged. After I responded in a way that irked him even more, Eric seemed to lose his cool even further. You'll pay for this. Including for refusing the donation. I'll demand double the compensation. That's pointless. What? He must have thought he could intimidate me into submission with threats of financial demands. However, I was not to be deterred because I was prepared to push back. Since you mentioned compensation, I hired a lawyer, too. So what? You think you can beat me with that? Haven't you realized? I didn't hire a lawyer to protect myself. It's to demand compensation from you. What? Eric's voice was incredulous at my revelation. To his astonished reaction, I delivered a shocking fact. You had an affair while we were married, didn't you? What? The moment he heard the word affair, Eric clearly became flustered. He had started an affair shortly before his illness was discovered and had been fooling around. Mandy testified to this. Mandy previously witnessed Eric and a woman entering a hotel and was shocked to recognize the person. I never imagined you'd get back together with your high school girlfriend. You told me you'd cut ties and didn't even keep her contact information. That lover was none other than Lindsay Reed, Eric's high school girlfriend. A person I also knew. Lindsay works at the city hall, right? Apparently, she's been blabbing about everything to anyone. Thanks to her, I quickly gathered information. That you two were secretly meeting without my knowledge and that she's pregnant. Eric choked on his words upon hearing the mention of a child. Confirming the accuracy of this information. You brought up divorce because Lindsay got pregnant, didn't you? You must have been threatened to divorce me. Or she'd spill everything to our high school friends and ruin your life. Lindsay was Eric's first girlfriend. The reason for their breakup was Lindsay's cheating. However, Lindsay remained a special person to Eric, being his first love. Although I realized this, I never thought they'd get back together. I reassured myself that it would be fine since they had parted ways. I never thought you were still connected to her. But it must have been convenient for you, right? We didn't have kids, and Lindsay was your type. So you decided to dump me and brought up divorce. Eric, having been seen through, gasped and stumbled over his words. Lindsay had been bragging about their affair at her workplace. Mandy overheard this and confirmed their relationship. Intending to inform me when we unexpectedly met at the city hall. She became my ally because she knew everything. So, you mentioned demanding compensation from me because we couldn't have children. But you'll be the one who's going to suffer. I'm fully prepared to fight back against you. But, it was actually your fault. Lindsay and I could have a child, but with you, nothing. This proves there's nothing wrong with me. Eric, in panic, inadvertently provided evidence of his affair and impregnating another woman. Turning to Mandy, I was relieved she had recorded everything, providing new evidence. With the men around us as witnesses, Eric had no way to deny his actions. Remember when we went for fertility testing together? Huh? That test. Prompted by my question, Eric seemed to recall. He exclaimed as I prepared to reveal the results. About the test results, there was no issue with me. What? Confused, Eric must have been puzzled on the other end of the line. He let out a baffled cry. The results showed the fertility issue was with you, Eric. You were the one without sperm. Eric, the one without sperm, was speechless at this shocking revelation. Meanwhile, frantic noises could be heard from his side. If you don't believe me, I can show you the evidence on a video call. Look at your phone screen. Saying so, I kept the call on speaker and activated the camera. The call shifted to a video call on Eric's end. And the moment I showed the medical report I had received from the hospital, a high-pitched voice came from beside him. Wait. Eric, listen to me. Lindsay was next to him, attempting to grab his phone. Lindsay, what the hell is this? Explain. Eric, filled with rage, glared at Lindsay as she frantically tried to deflect the blame towards me. It's not like that. This is. Come on, don't tell such ridiculous lies. There's no way Eric could be sterile. Caught in an unexpected situation, I was exhilarated. The drama unfolding was like something out of a daytime soap opera, capturing the keen interest of the men around us. Amidst the chaos, Mandy cheekily appeared on the call screen. Oh look, it's Lindsay. What are you doing there? I thought you had a date with the rumored handsome businessman today. Mandy. Both Lindsay and Eric seemed surprised to see Mandy on the screen, making the situation amusingly awkward for them. Mandy, clearly enjoying herself, continued to tease. You're always bragging about men at work. But who would have thought you'd go after Eric, too? How many guys just this month? You love to boast about how many men you catch each month at work, don't you? Stop it. Don't say ridiculous things. Lindsay paled at Mandy's unexpected exposé, while Eric trembled with rage, raising his voice in anger. What the hell, Lindsay? Whose child is that? It's obviously yours, Eric. Mandy is just spouting nonsense. Are you really going to believe her over me? Harsh words. Why would you think I'm lying? If you're so keen on making me out to be a liar, how are you going to explain this audio recording? Mandy, seemingly entertained by the confrontation, began playing a damning piece of evidence. So, Lindsay, what are you going to do about the baby? The businessman said he won't acknowledge it, right? The recording, made inside the city hall, presumably in a break room, was captured by Mandy. It featured a conversation between Lindsay and several female employees. Yeah. But I really don't want to raise it alone, you know? There's this guy totally smitten with me right now, so I was thinking of dumping it on him. You're terrible. How are you going to dump it on him? Lindsay shockingly responded to the naive question from her colleague. I plan to keep him as a sponsor, but it turns out he's trying to divorce his wife. He's an ex from high school named Eric. There's a vibe that I could easily push him to finalize the divorce. So, I'm thinking of threatening him with the child to make the divorce definitive. Then, get him to remarry me and take care of the kid. Despite the already astonishing conversation, Lindsay continued with shocking admissions. I don't actually like kids or want to raise them. But his mother has been nagging for a grandchild, saying she wants to take care of it. So, I'll just leave the kid with them and live freely outside. Everyone's happy this way, right? The only one miserable is his wife. That's wicked. That man is out of luck, getting caught by such a witch. Poor Eric. The female employees laughed it off as if it were someone else's problem. Eric, shaking with anger upon hearing the conversation. And I stared at Lindsay through the phone in disbelief. It's not like that. This is. Don't you dare make excuses. With evidence like this, how are you planning to weasel your way out, huh? As Eric seemed ready to lash out at Lindsay, I interrupted their quarrel to declare our forthcoming legal battle. That's the situation. A lawyer will probably be in touch with you soon. Let's discuss further through our lawyers. Jenny, wait. Let's talk, just once. I was deceived by this woman, too. I'm a victim here. If it weren't for her, we could have worked things out. So please, give me a chance to talk. Are you saying you'll dump me? Isn't that cruel? You said I was more important to you than her. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine getting entangled in such a scenario. Disgusted by the messy turn of events, I gave them both a weary look. As if I'd give you such a ridiculous chance. Besides, what happens next is up to you. I'm no longer your wife or anything to you. I let out an involuntary sigh. What had I ever seen in such a man? Now, I regret not just marrying him but even dating him in the first place. His words no longer had any impact on me. Please. Don't say that. Just give me one more chance. Let's start over. You say you were deceived, but that's exactly how I feel. All this time, you've mocked, belittled, and despised me. Do you have any idea how I felt staying by your side these past 5 years? That's. Caught off guard and without a response, Eric was at a loss for words. Neither you nor Lindsay will be forgiven by me. I'll make sure both of you are socially and legally pursued to the fullest extent. Be prepared. With those final words, I ended the call. A lawyer soon arrived, and without any physical altercations, Eric and Lindsay were taken to discuss compensation. Thus, my dispute with Eric concluded. Afterwards, I filed for a substantial amount of compensation from both Eric and Lindsay. Despite his threats, Eric hadn't prepared a penny. He thought that by intimidating me, I'd succumb and agree to donate my kidney. He confessed as much during the proceedings. As for the compensation, Eric, who earns a meager salary, couldn't possibly make a lump sum payment, and his savings were quickly depleted. Now, he's burdened with monthly payments. After breaking up with Lindsay and losing his home, Eric had no choice but to return to his parents' house, only to be rejected. His parents were furious, refusing to let someone who brought shame upon their family cross their threshold. As a result, Eric found work in a factory in another region, slowly paying off his debt. It turned out that the robust men Mandy brought were Eric's seniors from back home, offering to ensure he wouldn't dodge his debt repayments by employing him under their watch. Thanks to them, the monthly payments are progressing without issue. On the other hand, Lindsay, having been too scandalous, was fired from the city hall and now works in the nightlife industry, juggling day jobs to repay her debt to me. Cut off by Eric, and with nowhere to turn, she leads a lonely existence. She opted for the foster system for her child, admitting she lacked the confidence to raise it alone. Thus, I successfully settled my long-standing grievances. Since then, Mandy and I have grown closer, often going out together. I know a great guy from my seniors. I think you two would get along well. But I'm already at this age. What nonsense. A woman should always be in love. You've got to forget about that scumbag and move on. Though she drags me out forcefully at times, life is enjoyable with Mandy. She refuses to let me spend any lonely moments alone, welcoming me into her circle. Thanks to her kind consideration and warmth, my emotional wounds are gradually healing. I've even started dating a man she introduced to me. If you two ever have kids, let me hold the baby second. Hey, that's unfair. I'm the second one. What? I've known her longer, so I should be first. No way. Absolutely not. Watching their sibling-like banter, I vow to protect this newfound happiness.